Let's get going. Well, welcome, Dr. Sarah. I wanted to hit record right away because I know sometimes we get in a conversation and it's just like, oh, I wish I would have recorded that. So,
Right.
welcome. I want to tell everybody we got to meet in Costa Rica on the carnivore television show called Reversed. And I'm just really honored to meet you. And I want to talk about cravings. I want to talk about priming. But first, Dr. Sarah, can you tell everybody you're not just a beautiful face? You are also brilliant. And why don't you tell everybody how you became a doctor and why you wanted to become a doctor that specializes in the carnivore diet?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Thank you for inviting me for today. So I initially wanted to pursue dietetics because I struggled with my weight. So that was like the initial motivation. Ever since I was like maybe 12 or 13, I remember starting, with crash diets, and then that led to binge eating and sugar addiction, right? And so I thought that if I became, if I got my bachelor's in nutrition and dietetics, then there wouldn't be, that's it, like I wouldn't struggle in that area anymore. And then I remember like the first semester, I remember my professor, whom I adore, she's fantastic, but I remember like she was overweight, and I remember like my idea of my plan kind of was like crushed in like the first day. But I already needed to get a degree. And so I was like, okay, well, I have to still get this. So that was the first time I realized, like, just knowing it, knowing, counting calories and knowing, how much to consume and how much to burn and doing all that isn't really the solution, And not once did they ever mention the topic of addiction, food addiction, never, ever. As a matter of fact, anything outside of what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics puts out, like the guide, which is mainly all carbs and processed foods, is okay as long as you factor in the calories. Anything outside of that was deemed a fad diet. To this day, this is exactly what they teach to this day. And by the way, I grew up in Lebanon. So yeah, I grew up there, and then I came and I did my PhD here at the University of Miami in 2012. So like I think I graduated in 2017 or 18. But even when I came to Miami and I was teaching at the University of Miami, I was teaching nutrition. It's the same academic programs. To this day, they have not changed a thing, you know? So anyway, that was the initial motivation. And after I finished my master's in Lebanon, I did my internship. You do an internship to become a licensed dietitian. Sat for, passed the kind of like the board exams to become licensed over there. And then right away, I came and I got my doctorate in exercise physiology and nutrition. So the reason why I stayed in academia is because after I finished my master's, I didn't want to stay in Lebanon, and I did not want to go to like Dubai, which is what most Lebanese people do, because there are no jobs in Lebanon. I did not want, I've always been like very independent, very, equal rights and ambitious. And I did not feel like the vibe in the Middle East meshes with that, not even, and you could say, oh, Dubai is open and whatever, but I see all of my, girlfriends and the girls that went there, and I can tell, like, it's more subtle, but it's still there, So that's why I had no choice. It was either stay stuck in Lebanon and not be able to do all the things that I wanted to do, and maybe get like $1,000 or $2,000 working on research or seeing clients here and there. But there's like a cap to how much you can do over there. So it was like a no-brainer, And my grades I've always, like, for me, the education part always came easy. It was always straight A's. So for me, like, it was easy for me to come on a student visa. I got, financial assistance. This is actually important, because I notice every time I say it, people act surprised. You don't pay for your PhD. Like, if you have good grades, they will give you a stipend. It's like a job. You're literally getting paid, and in return, you're getting a doctorate. So I think it's important for people to know that almost nobody pays for their PhD. It's like a job. So obviously that was a great opportunity, and I did that. But midway through, I realized that everything we're being taught is close to useless when it comes to real helpful information that's going to change lives. It's like, it's the people that are teaching these things are people who are just literally reading from a book.
Mhm.
Really, that is it. So it was not helpful in real life, but it helped me, I guess. People look at the PhD differently. So I'm sure that helped my brand. I'm sure that helped when I was doing social media. So yeah, that's kind of like in a nutshell, a long answer.
No, I totally understand everything you're saying. My education background is exercise physiology and nutrition also. So we have,
Oh,
but my university asked me to speak because I live real close to the university. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you, I want you to know before I start speaking that I'm going to say exactly opposite of what you are teaching these children or, these, 20-year-olds.
right.
And they said, yeah, you probably shouldn't come. And I was like, well, at least like, it's just a
That's
bunch of
crazy that
lies.
they would ask you not to go speak, even though here you are, so successful, a major figure in the health field. How like what is the point of educating people? It's the point of that is to get them to become successful, to be a known name. The reason you're known is because you deliver results. You're working with celebrities and you've delivered results, to everybody. And it's like,
But I think like knowledge is power. And I think that, yeah, it's sad that the university, they're just reading from a book, like you said, right?
yeah.
Aloha, friends. Are you a carnivore like our carnivore friend over here? Well, if you are, or if you just started out, you might notice that you have low energy, even low moods, heavy legs walking upstairs. And what that means is that carbohydrates retain water. And when you eliminate all those carbohydrates, along goes all that water loss. You might get migraines, headaches. And what you need to do is you can't just drink more water because you're just going to urinate more. You need to add in something like Element. Element is a perfect electrolyte that has the best amount of sodium, potassium, and magnesium ratio. And they are so generous. If you use code, or actually if you go to drinkelement.com/Keto Maria, you get a free sample with your order. I love it. We always pack it when we come on safari or any of our trips. And it tastes delicious. I love this orange salt, and I actually marinate chicken with it. It's super delicious. Don't, oh, check that out. How cool is that? Don't miss the free sample. It's awesome. Kai loves the grapefruit salt. Oh, we have more animals coming up. It's pretty cool, huh? Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Don't miss the free sample. It's awesome.
You want to tackle first, but I thought what you said on the show was brilliant.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we were very. I don't think we realized just how close in the way that we practice we are, right? You
No.
know. So I'm so like afterwards, and I started looking up more like your interviews, and then I realized, oh my God, we believe like literally the same thing, and I think it has to go back to our similar backgrounds, right? Both struggled with weight, both struggled with food addiction, and then we work with a lot of people like every single day, and so we
Right.
get to apply this information and see
Yes.
what works, what doesn't. So yeah, what is addiction? Addiction is a destruction of your dopamine centers in the brain, right? For you to be happy and addiction free, what you need is dopamine to be released from brain cells. And then that dopamine has to attach to its receptor known as the D2 receptor on adjacent brain cells. It's like a lock and key situation. When the dopamine gets released and it attaches to the D2 receptor, that attachment is what makes you feel happy, motivated, productive, energetic, sharp memory, all the things that we want, right, in a healthy mood. Now, there are all of the other neurotransmitters that are also being released, like the endorphins, all of the mood regulating neurotransmitters also get released. But what happens is that there is a cascade chain of events that kickstarts the release of one after the other. They all eventually lead to the release of dopamine. So all roads lead to dopamine. So this is why in addiction we just focus on dopamine. It's kind of like the biggest player, and eventually they all lead to the release of dopamine. So we like to focus on that. What happens with addiction? So when you're engaging in a food drug or any kind of drug, you release very high levels of dopamine, as if you're taking, let's say, lines of cocaine, which is a stimulant. And so the brain freaks out and the body freaks out. It doesn't know for how long that level of heightened stimulation is going to last. And so let's say you're doing lines and lines of cocaine, what's going to happen? You're not going to want to eat, right? Appetite is suppressed. You're not going to want to sleep, and you're going to be very, very energetic. You're going to waste yourself away. You're going to burn all the calories, and you're not going to get enough nutrition and rest coming in. And so the body, to prevent this never-ending stimulation from happening, because it doesn't know for how long it's going to last, it starts to downregulate the number of D2 receptors. It starts to destroy the number of receptors that dopamine can bind to, because let's say you're releasing dopamine. If you don't have enough D2 receptors for the dopamine to bind to, it doesn't matter. You won't feel the effect. It's the binding effect that is the key here.
Yeah.
So you start destroying the number of D2 receptors. So now this is how tolerance builds. So now for you to feel the same high or the same effect from a drug, you have to increase the dose, because when you increase the dose, you release more dopamine, and the frequency with which you activate the D2 receptors, even though you have less D2 receptors, if you activate them more frequently, you get kind of like the same effect. So that's kind of how you compensate for this destruction of D2 receptors. But that only works for a while until you eventually keep on destroying and destroying more and more D2 receptors. And so what sets the tone for your baseline mood and energy and mental health is the number of D2 receptors that you have. So you start off with normal D2 receptor levels, and then as addiction progresses, it starts to drop and drop and drop and drop, even if you're building tolerance. So for the vast majority of your drug use, what you're doing is that you're trying to overcome this destruction in D2 receptors, but really what ends up happening is you no longer feel the high. You're just taking the drug to go back to feeling normal again, because now your baseline mood is so depressed because your baseline number of D2 receptors is so low.
Wow.
You see? And so when people are addicted to drugs, they're not doing it to get the high anymore. They're doing it just to prevent the depression and the withdrawal side effects of, the withdrawal phase of drug use.
Well, two things remind me of that. One, I think I told you the story about how I met a woman who I was speaking on the low carb cruise, and I was sitting by the pool, and her kids were playing in the pool with my kids. So we just started talking, and she told me how she's a drug addict and she's trying to, not be. But she said the hardest part is that was my life. I would try to get the money somehow, steal it, or take it from her parents, whatever. Do the drugs. It was just like, get the drugs. It was all a habit. And she had a hard time filling her days with something else because it was that's what she did. And so she's like, I don't want to do it anymore, but she's like, I have to find new habits.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, when you're bored, and this is what happens, right? If there's so many things that are associated with drug use, right? Andrew Huberman, who, let's not go into the latest controversy, just focus on the science. He has a saying that I love so much. Addiction is the narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure, and recovery is the progressive widening of things that bring you pleasure. So when you're addicted, everything revolves around food, right? Entertainment, stress relief. Everything you cope with is with the drug, right? And vice versa. If you want to recover, then now you have to figure out, well, what can you do for entertainment? What can you do for stress relief? What can you do for all of those other things? And so it's a complete, there's just so many habits that we need to work on. And you could argue that addiction really is just a very strong habit,
Mhm.
or multiple habits that are very strong, very powerfully ingrained in your brain. So you have to tackle one after the other after the other. And that's why it's hard, because it's not just one thing. It's like the entertainment side of it, is the stress relief side of it, all those things. And with food, it's harder because you also need nutrition, so you can't just abstain 100%, right?
Right.
So yeah, think of when you get bored. Most people, when if you, and well, I mean, I work with clients also, and they tell me the exact same thing. Like if their schedule is not packed,
Mhm.
and they have days where they're bored or they're tired, it's automatically, they run to the food. It's such a powerful drug that it can give you so many quote unquote benefits in the
Right.
short term.
Yeah. But Time magazine, they had a cover, and this was, I don't know, 2 years ago, and it said addiction on it. And
Mhm.
on that addiction, they had I don't know, like screen time, that was an addiction. They had drugs, they had sex, they had exercise. You know what they didn't have?
What?
Food.
Oh yeah, you're right, and you mentioned that, right? That food might not be anytime soon in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. This is like the kind of like the Bible of psychiatrists. We're on the fifth edition, and what they do is everything that goes into the DSM-5 is all of the accepted conditions, including addiction. So you have like caffeine addiction, you have all the addictions you just mentioned, but food is not there yet. I'm sure eventually, like, the science is overwhelming. We already have such a large body of science, and so it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And so eventually it will, but definitely not without a fight. We have a $1 trillion food industry whose bread and butter is carbohydrates and sugar, which is a drug. So they're not going to let that go like very easily. They're going to put up a fight. They're already trying to do that, right? They're already funding researchers to write papers on eating addiction as opposed to food addiction, because they want to blame you, like, oh, you're just addicted to the act of eating, as if anybody's addicted to eating broccoli. Yeah.
But I like that. It's interesting how you talked about it on their side, because I was thinking about it on the people that are actually writing the papers and stuff, because most people are addicted. Like, I don't know, the majority of people, okay, there's a few people that can eat just one chip or
Mhm.
whatever. But if you tell them that they can never have a chip again, they're probably going to be like, no, right? So if
Right.
they're saying these things that they love, even though they can handle just having one cookie, that they can't ever have that again because that's an addictive food.
Mhm.
I don't know. I just think that the majority of people are.
Yeah, I mean, almost everybody, literally almost everybody. Otherwise, nobody would struggle to change their eating habits, because it's not just overweight and obesity is kind of easy to see, and you can easily tell that that person has an addiction issue. But even the people who might not put on body fat easily, they might still benefit, and they know that they would benefit if they change their eating habits for their skin, for autoimmune conditions, mental health conditions, all those things. And they can't, they just can't do it. It is so difficult, right?
Well, that's maybe why I guess I saw a study that 47% of adult Americans are on a GLP-1. 47.
What? That's new.
It's either 42 or 47. Like, that's a huge amount. I mean,
47% of Americans? I have to look that up. This is insanity.
well, how do you feel about those? I mean,
Yeah, so those are like the Ozempic and the Wegovy. I know you don't want to say the name after you told me that story of the Weight Watchers sending you the cease and desist letter.
oh
I
yeah,
get
I
it's
don't
so
know. I
funny.
think there are plenty of YouTube videos out there talking about the dangers of it.
Everybody, right? Yeah, everybody's talking about it right now. So, okay. So here's the thing, and we talked about this in our interview, right?
Mhm.
When I interviewed you for my channel. What happens when you take the GLP-1s? What they do is they have a bunch of mechanisms of actions, but one of the things that they do is that they slow down the motility of your digestive tract, and so food takes longer to be digested. And so then that means, like you said, the glyphosate and the pesticides take longer, right, in contact with your gut. If you have reflux, which is so common, it's so common with silent reflux or regular GERD, where you have the heartburn. That, and I've worked with clients who've done that, right? And then it didn't work for them because it just exacerbated their reflux, and they would have the burping, the SIBO got worse, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. They just felt so ill all the time that the weight loss was not really, it just wasn't worth it. And they barely got any weight loss out of it anyway. Addiction is still there. If you have a destruction in your D2 receptors, if your baseline dopamine level is still low, when you take that drug, it's not going to fix it. You're still searching for addictive foods, and you're still going and eating those addictive foods. Even if you're eating them in smaller quantities, that becomes still your main form of nutrition. And so you're not getting enough protein. And we already know that I think it's like what, half of the weight that you lose is from muscle mass as opposed to body fat. And so you're not going to have the look that you have in your mind when you lose weight. You're not going to have that toned, muscular look. It's not going to look like that. So, not to mention the thyroid cancer. I had a client. We're still working together. She's doing phenomenal now on carnivore and exercise. But she did that, right? She tried the GLP-1s with her husband. She had a history of thyroid cancer, and the doctor still gave her the GLP-1.
Mamma mia.
I mean, I lost it when she told me. How? Like, the negligence. Yeah.
I love that we tied that together though, because people are like, "Oh, I'm addicted. This is my only way of breaking that addiction." And like you said, you're not, because of the brain chemistry. It's not going to work. It's not going to fix that.
No, it's kind of like when you look at the gastric bypass patients, they have a 300 to 400% increase in alcoholism within the first 3 years post surgery. Because if somebody goes for gastric bypass, the reason they got to that weight to begin with is because of severe food addiction. So that means their dopamine centers are like destroyed in their brain. And so now you cut off their main source of the drug use, so they can't satisfy that dopamine, but their brain is still running on empty. So now they just transfer addictions called AID, addiction interaction disorder. You just transfer the addiction from one to the other to still get that dopamine hit.
Yeah, I had 2 clients, a husband and wife, and they both got gastric bypass.
Yeah.
First of all, most people say they wish they would have found, this diet before they would have done that, because of all the, iron deficiencies and all of that. But the husband was amazing. He basically changed his food addiction to exercise addiction, because we did all the yoga together. Like he needed to be moving. Like you said, he needed to be busy.
Yeah.
The wife didn't change anything.
Okay.
She gained all the weight back. They ended up getting a divorce. It was just so interesting to see them so in love, but they love food so much, and then how it split them apart.
Wow, that's sad. That is sad. Yeah. Had she just picked up, the exercise is huge. It really is. I think Rich Roll once said, like, there's good news and bad news in addiction. Rich Roll, he's like a famous podcaster who also struggled with alcoholism. And he said something to the effect that there's good news and bad news. The good news is that there is a cure for addiction. The bad news is that you have to do it every day. And what he was referring to is exercise, basically. Just some brains require more stimulation. Some brains just require to get that dopamine from somewhere. And that's kind of like the main form with which I help my clients, right? Just raise that baseline dopamine via exercise. But yeah, it's not something that you can neglect and just do it once or twice a week,
Can it become a problem though, exercise addiction?
So that's
I was at one point.
Yeah, you think you were?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And there's 2 different ways of exercising. This is why I wrote the guide, Dopamine Brain, to explain exactly how to do it. Because
and we'll have a link below for that, everybody. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. So exercise addiction is very real. And people can get addicted to exercise, but usually it's when it's done in a form that's not very intense, when it's like more of a joyride that lasts for a long time, where you're doing it to get the endorphins and to get those dopamine hits over a long period of time, but you're doing it without feeling like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? You're actually enjoying it. And
Mhm.
so what I tell my clients is like, the moment you start to enjoy it, stop. It's like, so the way that you want to raise, yeah, and I'll explain why in a second. The way you raise your baseline dopamine level is by getting outside your comfort zone. And so you want to
Mhm.
train outside of what you can do physically, which means it's going to be very uncomfortable. So you want to raise the intensity of the cardio, you want to raise the intensity of the weights, because dopamine is an anesthetic. And so how do I raise baseline dopamine level? I need to give the brain a reason to spend extra time and effort and energy to create new dopamine producing cells and machinery and more D2 receptors. All that is work on the part of the brain. Why would it waste its time doing that at all? You have to give it a strong reason. That strong reason is, I'm doing things that are really uncomfortable and painful, and I need more of this anesthetic. And
Yeah.
so the more you train outside your comfort zone, where you really just, you don't want to stay there. You really don't want to stay there. That is how you raise baseline dopamine. But it's hard.
Mhm.
People just want to hear like, eat all you want. Like we were talking the last time about priming and feasting and fasting, and it's like, just eat all you want, and the addiction.
Oh no, I lose you for a second.
Oh, you froze for a second.
You're
Okay, you're
back.
back.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
No, I do want to talk about priming, but before we get there, maybe maybe we'll jump in there, but I do want to talk about cravings and how you do break that craving. But
Yes.
no, for me, I got an e-bike because I found enjoyment with being outside in nature. But
Mm,
for me, it was always like running and walking and riding bike. But I found like I just wanted to be outside. And so I found ways to be outside without exercising. So I have an e-bike, which I can just like be outside and I don't pedal. We just kind of talk. And um,
yeah.
but I see what you're getting at. Like it has to be hard. So
Yeah, and something really important too. That's why the subtitle of the Dopamine Brain Guide is that it's a brain rehab protocol. So not everybody has to do it for life. It can just be like a rehab, little intense period of your time where you do those intense exercise bouts. And when you do that, you learn to live without the drug. And once you have enough months under your belt living without the drug, you might not need to continue train at that level of intensity. It's just you no longer reach for carbs every time you watch a movie. You no longer, self-medicate every time you're bored or tired or sleepy. You
yes.
see? So it doesn't necessarily have to be for life. And maybe because you had a period where you did train a lot, you kind of did it without realizing what you did there, right? You rehabilitated your brain, and now you don't need to do that anymore.
No, I ended up having kids and I didn't have time to do it.
There you go.
That's what happened. But something that really attracted me to you, because when we were on that carnivore show, I was in the kitchen a lot cooking for everybody, so I didn't get a lot of time to talk to everybody. But then I was like kind of just researching you, and you're talking about priming on your Instagram and this and that, and I was like, wow, we had a lot in common, because I think we were maybe the quieter people in that
Yeah.
TV show, where a lot of them said just eat all the fatty meat and all the butter on the steak, and I'm like, I can't do that. I could never do that, because first of all, when you talk about salt, fat, acid, and heat, those are like the big things that cause you to want to keep eating, right?
Mm,
I was like, yeah, adding butter to a steak, it's just that's a great way
yeah.
to like finish the whole steak, even though you're probably full, right? But talk about
Right.
what is priming, because I never heard of it until I saw your Instagram, and
Mhm.
you talked about how dangerous it is. So I really want people to realize this, because I think we're the only people in the space saying like, no, you can't just eat all the fatty meat until you're full.
Right. So for anybody who doesn't know what priming is, carnivore is becoming more and more popular. And one of the very popular kind of methods of doing it is that are being recommended by very popular influencers in the carnivore field, is that you start off by doing priming, which is like part of the feasting and fasting protocol. So, in the feasting protocol, which includes priming, is that once you start a carnivore diet, you don't want to restrict yourself, so eat as much as you want. And they're actively encouraged to eat 3 times more than usual: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's a ton of food. And the goal of that is to do it for a few weeks so that you aren't feeling restricted from a nutrition point of view, so that you don't have cravings for carbohydrates in your old ways, eating more sugar and stuff like that, because you haven't been eating enough, because most people who come to carnivore, they've been dieting, and they might not be eating enough. They might be eating a lot of nutrient poor plant foods, and so that can trigger cravings. Here's the problem. Okay, let me actually continue that. So they do the feasting, which includes the priming, and then after that, they put them through a fasting protocol to lose the excess body fat that they will have most of the time gained on the feasting protocol. And so a large theme of that is you don't have to track calories. Don't worry about the calories. Just focus on the quality of the food that you're eating. As long as you don't eat carbs, you're good. As long as you're just eating carnivore, you're good. In real life, because we're seeing clients, we see the side effects of that, which is an insane fat gain that happens very, very quickly. And then people don't realize just how long it takes to peel off this body fat. It takes a long time. It is very easy to gain weight. It is 5 times harder to lose it, if not more.
But not just that, their blood sugars are getting worse, their insulin resistance getting worse. Like, their triglycerides are going through the roof. Like, this is not a good storm to be in.
Every excess body fat cell you have on your frame, it doesn't just sit there storing excess calories just in case there's a famine around the corner. No, it's actively releasing inflammatory molecules into your body. It's raising inflammation. There are a lot of people who come into carnivore because they not just want to lose weight, but they might have autoimmune conditions, right? They might have a lot of things whereby they need to trap inflammation. So what they don't realize is that as they're gaining body fat very quickly, they're actually increasing the net of impact of inflammation on their body. So, and then the depression, when you see yourself gaining body fat and you're so uncomfortable, again, we see them every single day, and we've spoken about this off camera, right?
Yes.
People they're like, yeah, I mean, I never lost. Either people will never lose any ounce of body fat when they go through that whole protocol, or they just gain weight, and then they're very uncomfortable. And then once you're uncomfortable and you're depressed because of it, what do you think that's going to lead to? If you're constantly depressed, your dopamine is shot, right? You're going to go back to binging.
Right. And
So
it's
that's why I
hard
don't recommend
to exercise with that excess weight. And yeah. I totally, it's just, when you are actually testing their blood markers, when they're doing that priming, that's when I'm like, whoa, this is not a good situation to be in. And in what form of, like our ancestral diet, when did they get the butter churner out when they killed the woolly mammoth? They didn't, right?
We didn't do dairy. You're right.
It has enough fat on it. You don't need to add a stick of butter.
Right. We
And
never in history. Say that again.
Most of the time, dairy is an issue and is an addictive thing to have.
Exactly. It has its own addictive qualities, and we never consumed it until the last 0.01% of our existence, only since the agricultural revolution, like around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. So for 99.99% of our existence as a species here on Earth, we never really consumed dairy because we had not domesticated cattle. We could just hunt large animals and feast on that. So yeah, that's definitely not the way to go. And I think more and more people are realizing it, which is why when I did the YouTube videos and the Instagram posts on priming and feasting and fasting protocol, a lot of people reached out. A lot of influencers even, DM me. They're like, thank you for speaking up about that, because we all see it in our coaching. I think it's really important for people to be properly warned about that. Then, not to mention the fasting that happens later on to try and lose the weight. When you're fasting, you're not getting protein, right? You're not getting protein. What's happening? Metabolic adaptation, your body adapts and it starts to slow down its metabolism because no food is coming in. So your body freaks out. Again, it doesn't know for how long this is going to last. It doesn't want you to not be consuming any calories for an extended period of time. So it slowly drops its metabolic rate. And how does it do that? By releasing the muscle, because muscle is a is an expensive tissue to maintain. And so you're not eating, calories are close to zero, so metabolism slow down, and there's no protein coming in to at least send that hormonal signal to the body, like, hey, at least keep the muscle. So it's catastrophic whichever way you look at it. That is not how you repair a metabolism. If you want to repair metabolism, we all know how to do it. We've spoken about this again last time, right? Reverse dieting. And reverse dieting is done slowly. The reason we do it slowly is because we know how quickly and how easily it is to gain body fat. And every time you gain body fat, now that necessitates another round of dieting, which slows down the metabolism even more. So, yeah.
Well, it just reminds me, on the show, we had Penny, who she was, I don't know if she was maybe 105 pounds. She was from India. Her background's from India. And she had type 2 diabetes so bad that, she was having like stroke episodes. And there was a topic that came up about personal fat threshold. We don't need to get into like Dr. Barry and I, our argument, but personal fat threshold is how much fat your body can, how many fat cells you have on your body. And some people, when they gain weight, they easily show how this is like that Asian paradox where they look very thin.
Yeah.
They have type 2 diabetes. That's because they don't have a lot of fat cells, but the ones that they have are stuffed full. Exactly. And so with Penny, we had to, I personally still keep in touch with her. You have to gain muscle and lose and shrink those fat cells. And the best way to do that is increase that protein. You have to do some sort of strength training to get that muscle, because the more muscle you have, the more glucose you have to disperse to go places. But I thought she was kind of like exactly what you're talking about. She looked very thin. To maybe some uneducated, carnivore expert, they'll say, oh, you are not eating enough. We need to like double your calories to get the nutrients in. When in fact, that was her natural body size to increase that muscle mass.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because this is what confuses a lot of people. They'll see somebody who's like a very popular influencer that doesn't gain body fat easily because their personal fat threshold is very low, and they think that that's going to help them as well if they just follow exactly what they tell them. But they don't realize like we all have different genetics. The vast majority of the population does not have a low personal fat threshold. The vast majority of the population gains body fat very easily, right? And so it's like you said, Asian genetics, and also like for example, my hubby is one of them. Like if I force feed him tons and tons and tons of calories, he'll lose the abs, sure, but beyond that, not too much. Beyond that, it's very difficult for him. He literally will sweat out any excess calories. And when he tells me that, I'm like, wow, I've never ever sweated out any binge I ever had. It's like, I wish that were the case. So it's rare genetics, but they do exist. And so it's so funny. They're very common in the fitness field because those are the people that can establish a fitness brand very easily, because it's very easy or much easier for them to maintain a shredded physique,
Right.
And so we have to really be aware. Do you share the same genetics? Do you share the same lifestyle? All those things affect. And so this is why, look at your results. There are people who've been doing the priming thing or the feasting and the fasting protocol for years. Yeah. And if it's not working, like that is like right away, don't go too deep into that, because the weight is not going to come off easily. It's going to be very, very difficult.
It's going to be difficult, and that weight is toxic. It's just not
exactly.
It's not a healthy way to live, whether it be, you're eating, all the healthiest foods out there. Too much you're filling that gas tank too much. You're going to blow up your engine. It's not a good thing. But since we both agree on the GLP-1s, why not just eat protein, which signals GLP-1 in your intestines? But you had a segment with me where you talked about cravings and how many days your taste buds turn over. Because maybe I think that would give people hope. Instead of spending $1,000 a month on these like medications that you have to inject, ouch.
Yeah.
15 days, because I think when people see, 15 days, I can do anything. But tell us more about that 15 days. What happens to your taste buds?
Yeah. So 10 days.
10.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know you know it, because last time you did mention the 10 days. people should watch the interview. By the way, it went live. I'm promoting it as we speak. Yeah. So it takes 10 days for your taste buds to be fully regenerated after, well, every 10 days you have a full set of taste buds. And so if you just stop eating addictive foods today, in 10 days you'll have a fresh set of taste buds. Well, you will have forgotten what addictive foods taste like. And this is what people mess up with, is like, if they're eating tons and tons of addictive foods and then they have, let's say, a steak or something like very, sober,
Yeah.
it doesn't taste good. And you have to remember, the reason it doesn't taste good is because you've numbed out and you've kind of built tolerance with your taste buds
Mhm.
to what real food tastes like, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to be patient and know that you can train your taste buds, and it's very fast. It's a very fast process. As a matter of fact, in like just a few days, 2 to 3 days, you already have like almost half of your taste buds fresh. And so you start really enjoying eating animal-based foods or just sober foods. And then by the end of the 10 days, you're looking forward to that meal.
Wow.
So yeah.
That just gives people hope. Like 10 days, because when they think, oh, I could never have X again. We're not saying that. Give it 10 days because maybe you won't want that again. I think that's like the secret, is to say, I can't have that anymore, becomes I don't want that anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, it's true that once you tell somebody like you can never ever touch that again, like it's this automatic reaction. It's, where you feel like I want it.
Yeah.
But it's like any other drug. If you really look at foods, especially our current food environment is what it really is, which is a drug. Would you look at, if I tell you, okay, you can't ever have cocaine again, would you say like, well, no, I want to have it? And it's a drug,
Yeah.
so you really want to know exactly what you're doing to yourself. And eventually you forget about it. But yes, again, food is harder because it's pushed on us, right? People don't respect the fact that certain people struggle with food addiction, right? And so they're pushing it on you. They're leaving it in the house. You're watching any show and it's like everywhere, the ads, and the age of onset, right? We start getting exposed to it from a very young age. So, but tons of people have been able to overcome that. And so even if it's hard, even if you're listening to this and you're feeling hopeless and you feel like there's no solution, just know, like, just because it's hard right now does not mean it will forever be hard. The more, right? And you've lived that perfectly. And so it's just a series of habits that you have to be patient with and change over time, and eventually you'll get to a point where it's not even something you think about.
No, it's not. And even my kids, they're teenagers, and that's not nutrition. That's not food to them. It's just substance.
Love
But
it.
this is why you have communities. I have communities. I take people on trips. I don't even make money on the trips, but surrounding yourself with those people will help
Yeah.
you become the person that you want to be. If you
Yes.
surround yourself with the drug addicts,
Right.
you're not going to make it.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah, because we have mirror neurons, right? Which is in a part of our brain where we automatically want to mimic the people around us, because those mirror neurons are constantly watching what other humans are doing and they're like almost subconsciously mirroring them. So if you're constantly around people who look at, or just live a lifestyle where it's like pizzas and the standard American diet and that's normal and that's considered food, you're going to struggle a lot more, as opposed to doing exactly what you're doing, right? So creating that community, interacting with people who are living that same lifestyle. Now it becomes the new norm, becomes, yeah, like this is a beautiful life. This is how we're supposed to be living.
And I never thought, I mean, I love the food that I eat. I feel like, I'm eating stuff that's so, naughty because I love it so much. But maybe we differ on this, and this is okay. How do you feel about something like allulose or stevia or things like that?
Mm,
I personally use that. It helped me stay on the diet for 27 years, but I know
yeah.
that there's definitely some people on the other ends that say it's going to stimulate your cravings.
I wouldn't say it stimulates. It's never been a trigger food for me.
All right.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my clients too. I've had clients like really, really serious addictions, and and I've had those testimonials on my website. So if you can go and read them, you can see the extent of prior addictions and how after they worked with me, it's like completely gone, and they can still do artificial sweeteners here and there, and
It's not
sober, not a trigger. It's really the carb. There's something about, it's not just the sweet taste, it also has to do with the real carbohydrates, how it affects your blood sugar. I think it's that interplay that seems to be
yeah.
really powerful.
Well, something that's very interesting about allulose that we're recently finding out is it acts on the GLP-1, where if you
Right.
have a few tablespoons of allulose in the morning, even if it was just plain, or you put in your coffee, I don't recommend coffee, but
Yeah.
2 hours later, you're automatically going to eat, I don't know if it's like 15% less than if you wouldn't have had it, because it
Right.
full faster.
Right. So it must also like slow down a little bit the gut motility. I guess now that you mention it, the only thing I would say, if somebody is listening to this and you have like silent reflux or GERD, just be careful, because, or SIBO,
Yes.
small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, all those things can slow down the motility. But I feel like compared to the actual GLP-1s, it's not going to be as
It's
strong
not
of an
known
effect,
to slow
right?
down the intestines.
Say that again.
It's not known to slow down the
Oh,
intestinal
then
movement.
okay. There you go then.
Signals that GLP-1, like protein, because protein doesn't slow it down, but it signals the GLP-1 in your body to
Yeah.
that you're full and satisfied. So
Right. So it acts in a different mechanism to send
yeah,
that signal to the brain that you're full. That,
right.
yeah.
So if
How
you have,
long have you been using that?
well, it's fairly new. It's only been a few years, and when it first came out, I was very scared to use it because I know what my body likes, and I know sometimes I can easily gain weight on any type of natural sweetener. But I was just kind of afraid to use it. But then once I did, I was like, wow, I can't do too much because it gives me like a upset stomach, which
Yeah.
that's kind of like with anything.
Yeah.
But I smoked ribs. I have a smoker, and I love to make smoked ribs, and I usually just season them with salt.
Yeah.
And then I would not use any sauce or anything, but I made like a simple barbecue sauce using allulose, and my whole family loved it. And as long as I didn't do too much of it, it was like
Right.
it was great to have something more flavorful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your cookbook is
Oh, thank you.
absolutely delicious. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. The carnivore cookbook. I think it can be so helpful, because sometimes if you go from just eating everything to telling people, oh, just have a ribeye with just salt and nothing else. I know, like, that wasn't my experience. I did paleo for a long time. I did keto for a long time. I did carnivore with the sweet potatoes and honey for a long time. So it's like, I think, sometimes we look at people who have been doing carnivore for decades and they've already gone through maybe the stages to now where they can do just that. And we think like we have to be that automatically. And if we're not doing that, then we're falling short,
If someone would have told me to eat carnivore 27 years ago when I started, I wouldn't even tried. I
Right.
wouldn't even have even tried. I would have been like, I don't like steak. I don't like, no. So for me, it was baby steps, and I always want to get healthier and better. And that's just, that's, if the only thing you do, you watch this video and you're like, okay, I'm going to just try to 10 days, cut out sugar or whatever.
Right.
And then once you accomplish that, you try something else, focus on more protein, whatever it is, switch your drink to maybe water.
Yeah. Then it becomes so much easier to do those shifts. And different people require different levels of restriction depending on their goals. If you have severe autoimmune symptoms, then that's a different story than somebody who just wants to be generally healthier or just wants a good body composition, So it
My husband
depends on
has,
your goals. Yeah.
he has ankylosing spondylitis, so his carnivore is different than mine.
Right.
If some plants fall on my plate, like
Yeah.
for him it's like, no, that's a no, right? So he just can't do it.
There you go.
But do you think that there are any downsides to carnivore, if any? Like, I don't know, people are just hearing about it now.
So the only thing that I have so far found is sometimes with endurance athletes. I don't know if it's because we don't have enough people doing strict carnivore with endurance sports for our belief system to change. So we feel like if we feel slightly weird, right away it's like, oh, let's add in a little bit of fruit or a little bit of honey. I think because we need more people, because there are people that are doing strict carnivore and they're doing endurance sports events and they're thriving, but they're very far and few in between, because again, this is a new thing that we're kind of revisiting in this
I did
modern age.
marathons. I did marathons fasted, and I didn't do any fruit, anything like that. I wasn't strict carnivore, but I didn't eat like cauliflower or broccoli or anything like that. It was mainly protein, but yeah, but I would have to definitely fat load instead of carb load,
Right.
fat load, because that
And
was
electrolytes.
I didn't even do electrolytes back then.
And what was the longest duration? How long was the event?
26.2 miles.
Okay, like a marathon, full-blown
Yeah,
marathon.
yeah.
That's
But
phenomenal. Yeah.
well, thanks. But I wish I would have known about electrolytes. But again, I was so afraid to add things that, what's this electrolyte? Salt. I was told it was bad. This was before I had kids, and they're teenagers now. But I would have done way better if I would have had electrolytes for sure.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? And people like he will hear that and they will be like, you know what, let me just keep that in. It's not the worst thing in the world. I think I know of like one person, or no, like maybe like three people that I can think of right now, who are doing like strict carnivore, long duration events, nothing, and they're doing great. But it's still like a minority, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of that is a limiting belief that we have,
Right.
that we need a little bit of electrolytes, or that we need a little bit of fruit or honey. I think we just need more people trying it out. And of course, we need the studies, but I'm more interested in actual people doing it, because the studies is going to take a lot longer for that to happen.
I mean, if you look at the science, your body can only go about, wait, how long is a marathon? It's been a long time, but your body can technically only go like 20 miles on glucose, right? After that, it's your endurance, or your body can switch over to be that fat burner.
Right.
So with that, women are usually better at switching. So at mile 20, that's when the men's usually start to walk, and the women can usually run through that. But again, like I was already a fat burner, so I never hit that wall.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting, but I definitely would have been faster if I would have had some electrolytes before the race. But it was pure fasted.
Right. The thing with carbs is like it's a steroid, right? So let's say you train under keto conditions. If then you have some carbohydrates a few days before the event, it's like you're taking steroids. Yeah, of course, your performance is going to be a lot better. It's like, where did all this energy come from?
Yeah.
But it's like you're taking a drug. So does that mean that that's a good thing or not?
True. Well, speaking of that, it kind of reminds me, the GLP-1s are a peptide. Are you familiar with other peptides like MOTS-c, or do you use or suggest any of those? No.
I've never suggested any pharmaceutical drug for weight loss to any of my clients.
A peptide it's a bunch of amino acids linked together. So
Yeah.
to me, is it a drug? I don't know. I don't think so.
Right. Yeah, it's like a naturally produced thing that your body.
Yeah.
I'm not against drugs. I like, for example, for skin, hair, all that kind of stuff. The thing with the weight loss, because I always have so many tools at my disposal that I always, but here's where this might be helpful, is like there are some people literally cannot move. They can't do the brain rehab protocol. They can't train hard. Their knees are blown out. They need
My husband, he's like, bodies fused together. You can't
exactly. So in those cases, you absolutely will require pharmaceutical treatment. I just read last night. I had a really bad night. I didn't really sleep, which is why like when I saw you this morning, I was like, this is early for me. Just like, why? It's like 9 a.m. where you're at.
Bad day?
What?
You had a bad night?
I had a terrible night. Yeah, I mean, I got my period, and it's funny because I haven't had like a bad period for a year, and I wouldn't say it was a bad period. It wasn't that, but it wasn't like the best ever. So it just messed up my sleep, so I didn't get any sleep. So I was researching stuff, as I do. So I read this new thing that just came out. They discovered a stem cell approach. Well, they applied a stem cell approach whereby they regenerated pancreatic beta cells for this person who had been using insulin for like decades, and now this guy's off insulin, off everything. It's like no more diabetes just from stem cells. So there are a lot of cases. Let's say you have type 1 diabetes. What do? You're going to require pharmaceutical intervention.
Right. No, totally. I actually went to Mexico to do stem cells. We can talk about that another time.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, this time has flown by so much. I wanted to ask you a few more things.
yeah.
So right before you joined us in Costa Rica on the TV show, you were on a cruise ship, right?
Right.
Do you find it harder to travel eating carnivore, or what did you eat on the cruise ship? Could you tell us maybe?
We stuck strict carnivore throughout the whole. It was 5 days. But let me tell you, the that's when I went back to drinking coffee because it was so freaking boring. Me and my hubby were like, "That's it." So here's what we did. We're like, we got this. We spent extra money because we were like, we want to go on a good cruise, but I don't know how we thought about this, but instead of spending it on like a better ship, we ended up spending it on a better cabin, like with with everything, and so you can sit outside,
Yeah.
and then it's like, but we never want to be in the cabin, we want to go and do stuff. And so the ship was like the only thing that I remember that was entertaining was like the stand-up comedy twice a night, 2 nights in those 5 days.
What ship was it?
It wa- what?
What kind of what's the
The,
name?
the really like basic one, the Royal, I
Oh,
think,
the Royal Caribbean, yeah.
Caribbean, right? Isn't that the basic one? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't come at me.
I do not like cruising, but I do it for work.
Right. So we should have gone with like a better ship, like I think
Region.
Symphony of the Seas or something, like I don't know which ones are the better ones. The point is, we were like, and you felt stuck. You felt like if there's not right, if there's nothing
There's
exciting
no
happening.
grass.
Exactly. So we just ate a lot of roast beef. I remember eggs and bacon, a lot of whipped butter. And that's when I went back to drinking coffee. I had not drank coffee for like 18 months. And they have like all the cakes and whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go nuts.
Mhm.
I'm gonna allow myself to go back to drinking coffee. And so and since then it's so funny. It's just like such a big drug. Like since 2023, it was like in January that I went back, and to this day, I probably was off it for like a couple of months in between.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I've been drinking coffee.
That was the hardest thing for me to break. I cut out dairy, I cut out all the sugar, all that, but
Yeah.
coffee, even though I knew it was making my PCOS symptoms worse, I
Right.
didn't cut it out until I was in my 30s.
Right.
But now that it is out, it's out.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I didn't sleep good, and yeah, it was totally worth it. But
Yeah. It's
anyway,
funny you mentioned that because there's this limiting beliefs like, what if I don't sleep good? In those 18 months where I did not drink coffee, I've had days where I didn't sleep at all or didn't sleep very well, whatever. It's you don't need it. You really don't need it. Like you might feel groggy for a couple hours in the morning, and then once the day starts, it's out of your mind.
I have more energy now than I ever did. I'm more energetic than my teenagers. It's just funny. But
Amazing. Yeah.
would you like give us an idea of a day of eating for you?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, sure. I post a lot of this on my YouTube, like what I eat in a day, or let's see, what have I been having lately? I've been I've been stealing my hubby's prepped meals, which are ground turkey. Lots of ground turkey, which he used to add broccoli for a long time, and now like slowly but surely, like I keep telling him about
Yeah.
carnivore and whatever. And I was like, the beef broccoli, he took the broccoli out, but there might be some black olives here and there in it. Outside of that, in the morning, it's usually eggs and bacon or eggs and sausages. I liked variety a lot. So a couple of weeks ago, I got a bunch of hot dogs, and I would do like eggs and hot dogs.
Mhm.
And air fried chicken wings, air fried chicken drumsticks plus whipped butter. Though that's an obsession of mine
Yeah.
that I love, and I rotate in and out every few weeks. Ground beef
Mhm.
with sour cream. I like that combination with light sour cream. I haven't done that though in a while though. What I have been doing instead is like beef burger patties, like a like when you go to McDonald's and you get the burger but without the bun, the beef burger patties with American cheese. With the comments, relax everybody,
Relax.
and some bacon. I love that. I mean everything. Fish. I haven't been doing a lot lately.
No.
But when I first started carnivore, I would do a lot of seafood. And now that I'm talking about it, I don't think I've been doing seafood much lately. But I used to do a lot of salmon, cod, shrimp with garlic herb butter. Those are like favorites of mine. I love the combination of shrimp with garlic herb butter and then bacon on the side. For some reason, I love this combo together.
I like it.
Pork rinds a lot. When I'm super hungry, I start like munching on pork rinds before I. So everything you can think of,
Yeah.
I'm a very like I like all kinds of meat. I don't really have something where it's like maybe like certain seafood. I'm not a big fan just because I haven't tried like mussels. I know people love that. I haven't tried it, so I
Mhm.
just look at it and like I don't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, salmon's not my thing.
Right?
I wish I liked it, but I'll eat the
Oh,
smoked
salmon.
salmon. Yeah.
Oh, I
Unless
love smoked salmon. Ooh, smoked salmon is so good.
then I'll
With
have it.
eggs,
Like some eggs. Yeah. Smoked salmon and eggs, I'll eat that, but just like a piece of salmon, it's just not my thing.
right? Mm.
You know, this hour went by so fast. I hope that you will come on again to inspire everybody. But in the meantime, where can everybody find you? We'll have all the links below, but could you tell everybody?
Thank you so much. Yeah, drsarahzaldivar.com/shop, or just like my website where it has everything, the coaching packages, and /shop is where you see all the guides. And then there are the links to my social media. So my Instagram is at drdr.sarah with an H, .zaldivar. My YouTube channel is my name, Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. And so, yeah, it's very easy to find me. There's nobody else with a similar name. So,
And I mean, I have to tell you, I would get messages from men saying, when we were on that TV show, saying that Dr. Sarah, is she married? She's so hot.
that's so funny. Oh my God.
I think
Thank you. I was a brunette back when I feel everybody's like, when are you gonna go back to being a brunette? I feel like everybody hates the blonde.
no, I
I'm
think
sorry.
it's fun to mix it up, right? I mean,
I know my hubby's and my hubby prefers brunettes also, and but he was like, maybe we should do blonde for a while, and he was like nagging for a long time. I was like, okay, fine, I'll go and I'll do it. So I feel like I'm gonna stay a blonde for like a year or so.
cute.
Then I'm gonna go baby pink for a few months because it's just so easy. It is so easy to go baby pink when you already have this color, just to take advantage. And then we'll go back because my natural hair color is just like yours, a little darker. It's like a dark, yeah, brown.
I only dyed my hair once. I was 16 and I dyed it blue to just upset my parents. But
I love that. That's funny. Yeah, no, I actually started going gray in my early 20s, just like my dad. So it's like genetics, I guess. So I
copper deficiency, and I don't believe that whatsoever.
I don't know. I know that it's funny. I was researching FMTs, fecal microbiota transplants. I think it has a lot to do with your microbiome too. Like, there's this 90-year-old guy that they gave him FMT because he had an E. coli, so it's basically a life-saving procedure. And as a side effect of that, he had patches of like lost hair, and he had gray hair. His hair started regrowing, and the gray hair went away.
Amazing.
So it's like, I think there are a lot of potential factors that affect gray hair. I think it could be nutrient deficiencies, but I think the microbiome is a big player too.
It could be a big one. I was just saying, my grandpa Jerry died when he was in his 90s from type 2 diabetes, which he had forever. He was not a healthy dude, and he had black hair till the day he died. Never dyed it once. Never one gray of hair.
Wow.
So I don't know. I don't think what you're putting in your body necessarily says a lot about
Not always. Yeah, not. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. It's sometimes people like to think carnivore diet is the miracle cure to everything in the universe, and it's like, I don't think so.
No, maybe
I wish it were.
I wish it were too. I think we should have you on again to discuss that. That it's great for symptoms, but maybe not everything.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of things. Yeah, we talked about that also. Yeah, I think, we have to do a round two for sure.
For sure.
Yes.
Great, Dr. Sarah. It was so great to talk to you. Thank you for giving us so much time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Of working with people. If you are interested in transforming your life, check out ketomaria.com. I'd be honored to help you.